Hello, welcome back to BlenderSushi live noding. In this video, I'm going to explore the Blender dynamic pane once again using animation nodes and Sverchok. Um, dynamic pane is one of the feature of Blender that's I think it's very rarely mentioned. I think it's one of the most awesome, and then I don't think any other software has dynamic pane. And when dynamic paint really combined with the power of particles, if the particles really being used to in with dynamic paint, it's even more powerful. And then now we have things like animation nodes and Sverchok, and I think it's it really like a big potential waiting there. Um, if I don't know about the UDIM thing, that's or the P-text kind of thing, that's a kind of the ability to paint without UV. I don't know how it will work with the dynamic paint, but I hope they both kind of can work together. So in a way, the dynamic paint is really like the procedural painting in the Blender. It's very hard to explain unless I think I have to show it to you. Currently, okay, let's see. I'll just save it. This is animation nodes, Sverchok, dynamic paint, intermediate. Like we already know, with dynamic paint, you can paint anything. You can turn any 3D objects into canvas, and you can also turn it into brush. And with that concept in mind, let's say you're using this box as a dynamic paint brush, just add brush, and this guy as dynamic paint canvas. Okay, these two should basically work right away, unless of course I forgot that the canvas need to have more points or more vertices, more resolutions. Let's go to edit mode and then subdivide this a couple of times. Subdivide it there until we have, okay, that's kind of enough, kind of very low resolution, but we should be able to see something already. See, that's a 3D object already painting on another 3D object. And in reality, you don't need a flat canvas. You can actually have the monkey and then turn this guy into a canvas and have another of these objects, and then you can see it's painting, but it's a kind of hidden. So I just switch the brush into just another object. I mean wireframe object. And you see, if I am just duplicating that guy, and then okay, go to dynamic paint options. This guy is also a brush. So this guy is a canvas. This guy is not showing us a brush. Let me check real quick. Oh, it's just the tab. I need to manually do it. But anyway, if I change this color into red or orange, and then this guy into, leave it as blue, and I copy it again, and okay, turn this guy into red, and copy it again, and this guy maybe, let's say blue or other color or green. You see here how really quick you have this kind of a semi-abstract kind of painting, and then and this is not just this is very unusual, and I don't think other 3D package offer this. This is very underused, I think. And with the monkey, for example, I'll give like a initial color and give it a color of black, or maybe different color, just darker color. See, and you can you can animate this brush And you know, at the moment I'm just using like a box as a brush. You know, this box can be any shapes, right? So I will actually write down the list of things. So I will make a note here. So like I said, dynamic paint is awesome. And what do we have? We can have brush and canvas in any shape, 3D or 2D. It's a resolution dependent, unless you are using UV. So when painting vertices, so brush and canvas can be any shape. Brush can be any size. Brush can be animated. Brush can have different color. Multiple brush is supported. Texture is actually supported as well, and particle is being supported. So it's a lot of things already in the list that we can work on. Yeah, so I made a quick one last night, and then the result is something like this. So we start. So this is like a 6,000 frames painting using animation nodes. Start with a blank canvas. 26 iteration later, 26 frames, I get something like this. How did I do that? That's because I'm using force. Force works with dynamic paint. Dynamic paint ink is dynamic. See, that's really big, you know. You can control the paint using gravity and all turbulence, all kind of forces that Blender has. You can even control the paint using Blender Smoke. So this is another. Last night I'm using Turbulance. You see how the inks kind of mixing and merging. And so skip through, and then this is I just let the dynamic paint to generate like this abstract image overnight. 500 iteration later, it looks like this. It's starting to look like because the canvas is almost kind of full, it just keep generating this random colors. And then there's my brush was actually last night I was using just this box shape, and then but the dynamic paint and that can be like the basis for other stuff. So I'm gonna do some improvisation here. Gonna switch to animation nodes and Sverchok, and I will show you like really like one way you can approach this. I'm gonna delete all this. Just leave it us with the this brush. I guess the box brush, we can keep it. So this guy should be, let's see, wire, okay, or instead of bound, just wire. Are they still working? I think they're still working. In other frame, you might not see things updating, but in the first frame, you will always see this thing updating. If you want to have like the effects of dynamic paint over time, you need to cache it. By default, dynamic paint indeed cache it. If you have the time, the playback running, and then dynamic paint will try to cache every frame. So let's start with something. Let's set the initial important thing with this guy. So we don't. I'm not gonna use loop yet, but maybe later we're gonna use loop. But we want to transform this object, right? Object transform output. That's what we're gonna use. So select that guy. Let's turn off this always, just this frame change stuff. Get our brush. This is our cube brush. And let's just randomize this, just wiggle it. Here's vector wiggle is fine. Plugged in the object. Okay, this is object transform output, so we need that to be this in this side. Not quaternion is a vector wiggle that we want. Before vector wiggle, I even I should show you, that's the basic stuff. Random vector, okay. Random vector, we just generally we just change the position of the cube or this brush in a random positions. It's gonna be like stamping because there is no kind of no transitions and the brush just being stamped all over the place. We're gonna do that first. So here we go. Playback, and if we change the seed, okay, the brush being generated in a different position, but they are kind of in just a small area. Let's change the scale. So now the box will be, randomly being spawned or repositioned on every frame. If you want that to work more, instead of us having to change the seed, just plug the seed. Just plug the frame numbers into the seed, So for every frame, it's gonna have a different seed, and that means a different position. So there you go. It's a random position. But at the moment, sometimes the brush goes too far. If our canvas is flat, it's not doing any painting. So yeah, you might want that. But if we separate the vector and then let it to randomly move in X and Y, but zero out the Z. Now for every frame, it's gonna be spawning, repositioning the box at random position. So this is more like it. This is more like what we want. The second thing, okay, we have a random position. Okay, brush can be any size. Brush can be animated. So brush at random position is already used. Brush can be any size. Okay, I will deal with size. I'll deal with a color real soon. Actually, maybe I will do the color now because just to make it easier to see. I'm gonna save this real quick. So color for the brush. Color of the brush is underneath the brush panel in here, and you can see there are two options. There are three options actually. There's the alpha as well. The alpha is really important. If I reduce this to 0.3 and then now let it generate, see, it has opacity. It's really powerful. I'm gonna play with that. We have option for the color for the brush here. So if we let it painting and then we change the color, manually change the color, you can see that we can already have like a random color, and then we have control over this color. This is like super brilliant, I don't know who had this idea for dynamic paint. I think Miika, M-I-I-K-A. I think the same person who did the Blender, the same developer who did a little bit of smoke. I don't know, but Mika works on dynamic paint. I know he is one of the developers for dynamic paint. This is really this is brilliant, okay? And you can also use object material if you feel like using texture and stuff and the material. This will work as well, but I'm not gonna use that. I'm just gonna deal with the color, RGB, and then the alpha, the opacity. And of course, this is I want to use animation nodes for that. I don't want see, at the moment I'm giving the control to the animation nodes for the position, but the color we can still control. Sometimes that's a nice thing actually. But as a demo, for the demo, I will also randomize the color and maybe the alpha. For now, just the color, okay? Just grab the data path. It says bpy.data object cube modifiers dynamic paint brush settings paint color. Copy data path, and yes, let's use object attribute output. let's get our brush. It says value has wrong type. Okay, fine. We want to give it a combine color. This is something that's always kind of okay. This color is giving out RGBA, and this value is always RGB. So it's for me it's a little bit. There should be an option here that kind of convert that, but it's okay. That's okay. We can use script node and kind of separating the RGBA. So let's grab the color, and then output is gonna be vector, and the output also gonna be float. That's for the alpha and for the RGB. So this is RGB, this is alpha, and this is a color. Color in. I'll just name it color in. And this is maybe something like that. And then the script is gonna be just something simple. RGBA equal color in. We know that color in is RGBA for value. Okay. Now the next thing we just need to do is just RGB out equal RGB, and then the A alpha out equal A. It's that simple. And then our script should handle the color better. So color in comes from this node, and we should have color, and the RGB out and A alpha out is ready for us to use. So now the RGB is being generated by animation nodes. This combined color. This is very cool. For the color itself, we can use a random color, or just let's say, let's just frame. Frame number plug into the hue. The hue is kind of changing over time. Let's have a look real quick. So now the color goes like a rainbow, from red to orange to yellow, and then blue, and we have this something that looks like something that's being produced by the cloud. But this is actually, I found that doing this kind of thing is almost like creating a generative texture, but we are painting it manually, and it's a slower process. A lot of thought you can, but this is, I think, really powerful. I'll show you next, because we can change the brush and a lot of things we can do. So we use we already used two ideas, I think, here. So random position, random color, and the brush can be anything, the brush can be Suzanne, the brush can be any shapes as well. So let's randomize the scale now. Scale. For the scale, I don't care too much. I just give a random vector value. Sometimes with a random vector you get a flipping because it keeps changing shape for every frame. If I plug in the seed into it, sometimes you have brush that's a little bit too small, but that's okay. Really, it's basically random shape of cube in this case, so that's okay. That's totally fine. So random position, random color, and random shape. That's really the basic stuff. What else can we do? We can, position is size. Okay, size, position, different color. Okay, different opacity of brush. Shape, size, shapes. We can actually use Sverchok for that. Believe it or not, Sverchok. I might use that at some point in this soon, very soon. But for now, okay, box position. It can be animated. animate it. So at the moment, its position is random. So random position probably not so interesting. I'll increase the subdivisions of my canvas so I have more resolution, so you can see more details as well. Okay, so that's already quite interesting. You can have if you want it animated is like interpolate. There should be some kind of interpolations from one position to another position. So we can use wiggle for that. Just for simplicity, just use a wiggle of evolution. Plug the frame into the evolution, the vector into the locations, and we can also use this separate vector stuff. Now the object should be traveling. It's like wiggling, and let's increase the speed and then increase the amplitude, so it's wiggling around and it's painting as well while doing that. But you can see that now there's kind of relationship from one position to another, to the next positions. It might be a little bit slow. Maybe increase the persistence. Maybe the brush size is changing too fast. Maybe leave it at 1 for now. Seems to be too fast actually. Should do it slower. Now you see that the brush is kind of floating around. If you really want, you can also use the Z. Of course, with the Z, the brush will go down sometimes and goes up again. That's actually okay. Let's and let's increase the alpha. And let's see. Maybe not too much on the Z. I'll cut the Z once again. That's actually more like, that's more like it. We can change the brush scaling. Maybe not too random. Let's change the brush scale using the math sign. Use the sine wave on the brush. So you will see the brush now is getting smaller and getting bigger, kind of like a breathing. It's probably still okay. The sine is too fast, that's why. This should be, we can just use remap, map range. The sine goes from -1 to 1, and this should be between maybe 0.1 and 2. So that's scaling. Okay, that's even now. It's starting to get more interesting. Let's bring back the alpha so it's more transparent over, and because it keeps changing color over time as well. It's maybe the color shouldn't change all the time, but that's okay. We can reduce the saturation and reduce the value so it's more kind of a sophisticated color. We can randomize the value, of course. Over time we get different color. You can do it endlessly. What else? Okay, the sine. Okay, we have the sine. Let's also slow down the sine using math. Multiply this value 0.4. Now that's kind of more interesting. I think that's a beautiful, really beautiful, and it's endless. There's some endless variations you can use In fact, if you just change the brush into something else real quick, like the donut or cylinder, something with a hole maybe. I guess don't worry, just leave it like that. Opacity of the brush, we kind of touch that. Texture is supported via material. Particles and dynamic paint is dynamic. Dynamic paint is dynamic. Okay, let's touch on that real quick. But for now, I will actually use Sverchok as well. I will see if it's gonna work. Sverchok new. Let's use something simple for now. Circle, maybe circle. Circle with a sphere node, sphere draw. Okay, that's okay. That can be our brush. We will see. Okay, with a circle, and then let's randomize input vertices and just give it a amplitude, random amplitude, and then change the seed, change the brush for every frame. We're gonna do that. Use the frame number to randomize the brush, and then radius we can change here as well, so we can change the brush here, and then use the MK2 viewer, so we have real objects, vertices, and polygon face. Now we actually have a real brush we can work on, and turn this into dynamic paint brush. Hopefully this works. I haven't tried this. Let's give it a test. So yeah, seems to work. Let's drive this guy using animation nodes. Just grab the brush. So I need to tidy up a little bit. Okay, now this guy should be moving. Maybe the wiggle is too strong. Now the brush doesn't work too well at the moment because it's a, if it's like a 3D volume, it's gonna work really well. And in this case, kind of like a flat paper. I think if I go back to Sverchoks and maybe extrude separate faces, that might work. If actually I use the solidify here, put it on top, added a little bit of thickness. Solidify might not work. Maybe I shouldn't have used the circle, maybe something else like a sphere, or let's try actually use a rounded box. Okay, rounded box. Give it a size. So that's more like a crumpled kind of box. 0.3. Okay, that's okay. That's actually probably better, like a crumpled kind of object. Yeah, that's really cool. Let's use that. We can, that's the crumpled paper is being produced every time, so that's okay, that's fine. Let's switch back to animation nodes, and then here we need to make adjustment. Switch to alpha. Now our crumpled object is gonna have different shape of brush and then different color as well. Turn this guy into wire, and Sverchok, maybe don't update. Actually, it should be updating. Yeah, it should be like that. Now let it generate. So you want to see it in full screen? Okay, let's do that. You see, that's kind of abstract painting, and it's being generated using dynamic paint. It's what's underneath actually quite basic and simple, but the result can be really interesting, because if you think about it, in order to generate this, if you are using like OSL or open shading language and write some kind of program to generate something like this, it's kind of like it's a lot of codings. For a real good coders, it's gonna be okay, that's easy. You can do the same thing, but knowing that you can do this using animation nodes and Sverchok, this is really powerful, because you can be like an artist. Okay, so it's an quite abstract, but but this is really powerful. And I'm just here, brush and canvas in any shape. This is really powerful. If I want to just give it a preview with a force as well, dynamic paint is dynamic, and then once again I said it again. So dynamic paint initial color, I'll give it a maybe kind of gray. Gray is good value to start with. See here, dynamic paint effect. This is very powerful. Use spread, for example, and now the color is spreading just like a watercolor. Color can spread, or other just can. You have this option, and you have drip. Drip is when the value is being affected by gravity. If the canvas is actually standing, it's gonna be affected by the gravity. But what's really powerful is if you are using the force field, you see to have all this turbulence, void, smoke. Smoke can affect dynamic paint. Maybe turbulence. I'll use turbulence. Give like some kind of vortex. Sometimes turbulence is the key to make interesting looking effects. I'll give it a string, really high string, and the noise. Maybe the seed. Size maybe 0. Let's have a look. Now let's see if I can see it or not. Use strip. Okay, I need to turn on use strip. Okay, now the color is being affected by turbulence. You see how amazing this is? This is like unreal, So you can shrink it a little bit as well, so the color kind of stop and shrink at some point if you really want it. But let's have a look again in a real 3D view. Okay, this is what you get. This is kind of a, I don't know. I don't know how to say it, but it's really powerful. Yeah. By default, the dynamic paint will run from 1 to 250. It will cache the dynamic. You can cache it offline, but you can also cache it real time until your memory is full. Let's see. Let's give it a 2000 frame to calculate. Actually, I just leave it like that, and then have a timeline here so we know how long we have. Timeline. Okay. There you go. I'm gonna leave it for hundreds frame, a few hundred frame, and you can have a look. This is beautiful. Very rarely that Blender artists use this feature. I think this is really like as powerful as Sublime Painter. Is it Sublime or Substance Painter? I have not used Substance Painter. I've seen the demo, and it's kind of, you can paint, you can spray the paint, and then the paint's kind of moving. This is more or less like the basic. It has the basic of that. Maybe you can also use particles and voids, so make the particles alive and color the dynamic paint. Currently, I'm using Animation Nodes and Sverchok, and if I switch back to Sverchok, because I want to do more, let's save this real quick. Switch back to Sverchok. You see your brush can be alive. Okay, I'm gonna switch back to frame number 1. I'm gonna save this real quick because I like the result. Currently, our Sverchok brush looks something like this. It's a crumpled paper. Crumpled paper, not so interesting. You can do a lot more. Obviously, you can also, if I have like a random points, random vector, and give it a count of 5, and then plug this into the matrix. So I have like a five different crumpled objects, but each one of them should be, if we want to have multiple brushes, there's a little bit of concept that you understand in Animation Nodes in order to do that. I have already mentioned it in the previous live noding. So dealing with multiple objects is of course not simple. So that's maybe for the next video, but I want to show it to you that if it's Sverchok and then if you combine, instead of using the matrix, if you combine this random vector and then you use something like apply matrix, you can let's see, you can basically generate brush like like that, like a combined kind of brush. So you have like imagine 5 crumpled paper and you use all 5 at one time. So currently it's being randomized in all position. We just want it in the X and Y. We don't want the Z. So let's do that. Vector out, vector in. So now it's see the balls. It's all in one position. And instead of plugging into the matrix, we're gonna do it like this. We need to, I think I need to repeat this polygon. List repeater number 5, poly. I think that's correct. And then the amplitude, don't forget we need to randomize, crumple our paper. And if you want a different kind of seed, different kind of crumpled, we can randomize the seed. I think you can just use add here and use range integer here, count of 5, and plug it into that guy. Oh, I was hoping you have random seed. It should have random seed. Maybe this vector need to be also being repeated. Maybe let's do that. well, it's sort of happening. The crumple still look the same. Maybe I missed something here with this guy. Oh, actually, I repeat that there. Polygon. I forgot. Actually, I forgot something. Instead of matrix apply here, we can actually just plug in this guy to that guy and this to that guy. And use merge. I was hoping to have the random seed here. Random seed. Seems like it's not really happening. Maybe I should repeat in here and plug this in that guy. Okay, now that is correct. Now it has a random. Yeah, it's all random now. Let's resize our cube. Okay, now we have totally different kind of a design for our brush, and then let's have a look at the result. Let's look at it in real 3D view full. Okay, that's the result we're getting, because our brush is now like a 5 crumpled objects being generated in Sverchok. It's currently resizing randomly, but you can see the effects. It's really cool. This is currently running in a full speed at a low resolutions. Of course, if I keep increasing the canvas points, the resolution of this canvas, it's gonna get slower. We don't actually need to do that. If we use the UV, unwrap the UV. If we have UV for the canvas, we can actually export it out as a kind of like a pixel level resolution. So here, image sequence and resolution. Here you can control maybe 1024, and then start and sub steps. We need to specify the UV, and if I bake image sequence, it's gonna bake it to Cache Dynamic Paint, and it's gonna do it for us. But it's gonna take a while. But I'm gonna show it to you. I think it's gonna work fine. Let's find the folder real quick. Cache. What's the name? Cache Dynamic Paint. Let's go to desktop. Cache Dynamic Paint. That's the default folder. Make sure to rename the folder every time, because it's gonna override the result otherwise. Dynamic Paint is still baking. There you go. It's being able to generate the first frame. Second frame takes a little bit longer, but you can see the detail. This is just like a crumpled paper being generated in Sverchok, and then it's stamped our our paint, and then mixing it with the next frame, and you can leave it for a while. And this is really powerful. I think now Blender is hanging because it's baking, but maybe 1,000 or 2,000 iteration later, you will see something more interesting. Now it's 3 frame. You can see, oh, this is already, wow, that's like that's amazing. That's like being done by master artists. Even though, yeah, the color, the color is basic. If you use like more sophisticated color, get the color from cooler.com, maybe like just pick 4 or 5 color. That can be also an idea. Um, of course, currently it's just randomly wiggling and repositioning the brush and then randomly stamping the brush with a different crumpled brush. But you can do a lot, and if you control the brush movement, and you can also maybe use another data. If you, let's say you're tracking your face, using webcam, and using that webcam to track the brush, what do you get? It's all kind of question you can ask. It's like endless. You can have like, I can create 100 videos maybe, or hundreds of videos just talking about dynamic paint and how you can generate brush. It's maybe that's something I will do in the next live nodings. Yeah, but anyway, that's kind of the idea. Hopefully you find this one kind of entertaining and also inspiring. I definitely challenge you to generate something using this Blender Dynamic Paint and Animation Nodes and Sverchok. They're really powerful. It's totally different set of mind. You can when you're doing this, you're learning about programming. You're learning about coding slightly in the like programming concept, and you learn about, maybe you want to use math to randomize the position of the brush. Maybe if you're good at math. You also learn about color and about this kind of data, and you also learn about Blender. If you are using your own model, for example 3D model, or maybe make like a random shapes, maybe you can also drive this brush using sound, or you drive it using music. You can say to someone, okay, hey, I'm making this artwork and I'm using data to drive this brush and blah blah blah, tell a story and tell them, I'm using Blender for this, and Blender is open source and you can do it on any computer. It's amazing, right? I think it's really amazing. I think it's definitely worth trying. Yeah, thanks again for tuning into this channel. Thanks for watching this